Mafia City! It's another one of those quality mobile games you've probably seen the ads for. For those who haven't seen it, they usually show what looks like a GTA style game, typically involving some interaction between a level 1 crook and a level 35 boss. But wait, isn't this an old meme? Well, yeah, this was pretty big a year or two back, and everyone was doing the whole, that's how Mafia works, yada yada. But recently I've started seeing the ads yet again. So this got me curious. What is the game actually like? The video always looks pretty intriguing and makes it look like some kind of open world thing with decision making and a leveling system. But, well, the reality is often disappointing. When you start the game, you're greeted by this young lady here. Better make that Roblox friendly. That's better. And the game quickly turns into one of those tap here, build this, get more coins, build more things, rinse and repeat type games. Now, to be fair, the game is actually pretty well received online, but it's basically your usual addictive farming simulator type game. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not exactly what it said on the tin, is it? But this did get me thinking, what if we could make the game we see in the adverts? Clearly, game engines like Unity and Unreal Engine just aren't going to cut the mustard here. We need something for pros. Roblox Studio. Okay, so let's take a dive into the cinematic universe of Mafia City adverts. The first thing you'll notice is there's a couple of stock characters that keep resurfacing. For now, we'll ignore the babes. I'm not kidding, all the women in the game are called babes. We'll ignore that for now. Those aside, they are generally the hitman, the crook, and the boss. Now we just need to create a Roblox version for each of these. Our crook, our extra thick hitman, and of course, the big man himself, the boss. Now these characters seem to be matched to your level, however the exact lore of the Mafia City universe isn't always clear. In fact, it's almost as if they're making it up as they go along. After watching hours of adverts, I've seen level 1 family members, a level 5 cook, level 10 hitman, level 10 riffraff, a level 15 secretary, level 30 boss, level 30 hitman, and even a level 50 secretary. What's going on here? Well, for our own game, we're going to need some consistency. So let's just say crook, level 1, 15 to be a hitman, and then finally the boss, a level 35. That's how Mafia works. Next, we can slam on some little markers above the head of each character, and we're starting to have something here that sort of resembles those adverts. Now, with our levels sorted, we just need to find a way for our players to level up. The game shown in Mafia City game isn't exactly deep or complex, it simply involves getting a ton of money and getting all the swag that goes with it. With that in mind, it seems to make sense to have our levels use money as experience points, so the more money you earn, the more you get to that sweet level 35 boss rank. But how are we going to earn that money? Well, again, let's consult the cinematic universe of those adverts. There's generally two ways we see players advancing. Either through a simple action, such as robbing a store, or by choosing a correct option in one of those decision screens we're often shown. I then wanted to recreate the pop-up that appears when the character is given an option to choose. So I rigged up this GUI here. We can then trigger this UI whenever we want, such as setting it up when we hit a part. Now, blue squares are kind of boring, so instead, let's create an actual store to rob. Now, the one that did catch my eye was from the adverts, this small pizza stand. So I thought this would be a good thing to try and recreate for the game. I also created the little shopkeeper dude that you can see behind the desk. I apologise the camera angles are sometimes a bit flashy here, but you can see roughly what I'm going for, and when you contrast it with the actual building from the ad, I think it's a fair comparison. You can also see I tried using the default Roblox truss here, but in the end the size wasn't quite right, so I just created my own with a union, and then set about creating this kind of canvas roof and adding a little curve to go along with it. Now, when we go up to the store, it will trigger the UI, and we can even add on a little camera effect to make it all look a bit more polished. Next up, I added in some leader stats, giving us money when we select the correct option. And why just have one store when you could have two? So we added in a slightly recolored version, and suddenly we have ourselves a taco store. So now that we're earning money, it's time to start leveling up. I needed a way to link that in with the ranks we defined earlier. Now, I didn't really know what I was doing here, but I needed some kind of formula that would scale as we level up, so each new rank would get harder as you progress. Eventually, I ended up with this messy looking thing, which basically means you need around $400 to reach the first level, but then you'll need $1 million to get to level 35. While I was testing this, I added in some parts to subtract money, and you can see it all in progress, though it does look a little lackluster. To make it more satisfying, we should probably give the players some more feedback. So I added in this effect above your head whenever your wealth increases or decreases.
Wow.
A shiny level up effect for when you get the next level.
Wow.
And I then created a level up GUI which was loosely based on some of the screenshots from the adverts. So I am still trying to stay on theme here.
Wow.
Finally, I added in some sounds and it's starting to come together. Then, all I had to do was add in the characters and our leveling system is complete. Ugh. Now, from the pace of this video so far, you might be getting the idea that this is all super quick, but I'd be lying if I didn't mention some of the bugs along the way, and there were plenty of them trying to get the character switching working. The first thing that went wrong was the broken camera, but when I sorted that, I ended up with this funky looking crook gnome hybrid, which actually looks quite cool to be honest. Maybe it needs a game of its own at some point. Though it turned out this could just be fixed by unticking character auto loads from the properties of the players, so that was easy enough. I was also having problems with the camera and animations, including getting this jumpy looking dude who I think was just teasing me on purpose. A lot of this was just due to how everything's set up, so setting the camera before I added in the character, otherwise you can even end up with the camera way up in the sky like you see here. Eventually though, the animations and everything got sorted, and I got the character changing when you leveled up. A slight annoyance is how Roblox automatically changes your camera when you switch, and there's a slight delay between the two positions, but I just decided to leave it. It's a feature, not a bug. Okay, so we have ourselves a mafia. Now we just need to get ourselves a city. The adverts don't really tell us a lot about the city other than a few generic buildings. So I looked around for a bit of inspiration. A lot of the adverts seem to emulate a world similar to the Grand Theft Auto series. Now obviously I'm not going to go that far and recreate an entire sprawling open world map here. Well, at least not yet. But it's a good start to get a few ideas. Now my favourite location definitely has to be Liberty City from GTA 4, with its grimy, crime-infested streets seeming like a prime candidate for our game. One of the areas in Liberty City is called Broker District, and it's here where you first start the game and become introduced to the Russian Mafia. Perfect. Quick side note here, but interestingly this is actually based on a real-life area of Brighton Beach in New York, and you can certainly see the resemblance when you compare it with some of the images from Google Street View you can see here. So, with this in the back of my mind, it was time to start building. Cue the time lapse. Starting off with, of course, it's always important to have a rough sense of scale, so I'm using the character model and also the cars as I create the road to sort of roughly work out how big it needs to be. Along the top of this road is going to run the railway line, which we saw on the Google Maps or on Liberty City. So we're going to need these large steel supports to go along the road and support the train that's going to run along the top. You can see I spent quite a lot of time messing about with all of this, but I wanted to do justice to sort of the idea of an industrial aged setting rather than it just looking like some new polished bridge straight up, and then I could start to move on to some buildings. Now we're going to have a mix of sort of shop fronts and apartments above them, so you can see I've got some doors to entranceways and also glass fronts of the shops. Now if you have played GTA 4, you might recognise this building as it's sort of roughly modelled off Roman's apartment building, which you can see here. At this point though, I was thinking it was maybe starting to look a little bit too drab, so I better provide the city with some essential services to liven it up. Of course, what mean Mafia City would be complete without a nail bar for our macho men to get their manicures sorted. And we wouldn't want them to be too much of a burden on their mothers either, so I'll provide them with a laundromat next door so they can do all their washing nice and handy. Across the road we needed some more buildings, and it's important to give our guys something to do on the weekends, so where better to go than a clothing department store. And even better news, it has a sale on right now, so they better get themselves down there quick. Once they're done hunting for this season's new fashions, they can get themselves straight down to the shoe store next door, the home of Milazzo's finest leather boots. Then I duplicated the laundrette, added an extra floor and renamed it to a phone shop, which is admittedly a bit last decade at this point, but it's important for them to invite the boys from the next street and invite them down for a Mad Lads type shopping spree. With the shops done, I fleshed out a bit more of the street and then return to the overhead rail bridge and try to get it into this nice, neat curve. This actually proved to be quite tricky, trying to get all the right angles and get everything lined up how I actually wanted it. Thankfully though, I eventually found a super useful plugin called Archimedes, which does all the hard work for you. Then I just had to move some of the columns so they weren't blocking the whole road, which would help, wouldn't it? Next up came a corner shop with this little green canopy and then glass frontage around the sides. Mafia men do take their nutrition seriously, so it was important to make sure it was well stocked with fresh fruit and veg to keep the boys in good shape. Okay, so here we are. Here's our finished city build. I've just spawned in as the level 1 crook. And let's start to take a little bit of a look around, shall we? I mean, I think what I like most is this kind of sweeping railway line above us. Although at the moment, as you can see, it's a little bit bare because we haven't actually got any rail running along it. It's all ready to go. We'll have to get that sorted at some point, maybe. We've got our taco stall over here. We can go and demand some money off the poor guy. So we click that and we'll get $250 there.
Wow.
Our vegetable stall over here. You can see all the shops we were working on earlier. And if we make our way all the way down towards the end, we'll find our Pizza Hut. And we can go and demand some more money off him. And I think then we will level up as well. There we go, we reached level 2.
Wow.
And if we have a scoot around the back here, we will see some of the buttons you might have seen from earlier when we were using them just for testing. And so we can go and level up a little bit. Bam, 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 bam. And suddenly we're Hitman. That's nice and easy. What have we got here? We've got ourselves a city. Well, we've got ourselves a street. So have we remade Mafia City? Well, not yet. We've not got ourselves a mafia and we've not really got ourselves a street. But what we have got is a shopkeeper bullying simulator. You're welcome.